We're glad to have you back for another edition of Engine Power. Now today we're continuing on this project we named Gray Hair White Knuckle. Now for those of you who aren't familiar with this sled, here's a quick look that shows how we arrived at that name.
Earlier this year, we tore down an impressive LSA engine from the already stout performing Cadillac CTS-V. We took it from the stock 376 cubic inch displacement all the way up to 427 with some solid internals, Samtec ported heads and supercharger, and HP Tuner software. It cranked out 816 horsepower and 797 pound-feet of torque on good old 93 octane pump gas.
We wanted something a little different than the standard Camaro or Corvette for all that power. Now searching for vehicles on the internet, we found this 1993 Chevy Caprice in cherry condition for its age. Now throughout the car you can tell it's been well cared for all of its life. So rather than cut it up and make a race car out of it, we took a more subtle approach and decided to make some not so obvious upgrades to this grandma grocery getter.
The factory 305 was removed, along with a 4L60 automatic transmission and the factory 7.5 inch 10-bolt rear end, which was replaced with an 8.5 10-bolt filled with Yukon gear and axle parts. We connected it to the car with beefy upper and lower control arms, then dropped the powerhouse between the frame rails.
We home free, baby.
Last thing you saw was the 6-speed automatic transmission made to the engine so we could get an idea of how to build the crossmember.
Now it's time for the final portion of this build. Now it includes a lot of parts and quite a bit of work. Now PST sent us their tubular upper and lower control arms, QA1 furnished the coilovers, and Circle D sent us a trick converter that'll transfer the power from the engine to the transmission. Racepack sent us one of their digital dashes, and on the other end of the table, we have a brake upgrade from PowerStop. Now we're going to start with the front suspension. Performance Suspension Technology's lower control arm uses polygraphite bushings, which are an upgrade over urethane. The arms have provisions for front sway bars and work with factory springs and shocks. Now they have ball joints and bump stops installed when you get them. The uppers use the same type of bushings and come with cross shafts, bump stops, and bolt-in ball joints. Paired with the lowers, we get a 10-pound weight savings.
These QA1 coilovers are a bolt-in, user-friendly solution to obtain excellent ride quality on the street, strip, or autocross track. They're designed for GMB bodies and are double adjustable, meaning there's one knob that adjusts the rebound and the other that adjusts the compression. This allows for independent adjustment of both directions of shock travel. Ride height is fully adjustable and will lower the vehicle up to 2 inches. Or if you just want to level the vehicle out, they will handle that too.
VHT's black epoxy paint will coat the original spindles we cleaned up in the hot tank. This stuff is self-priming and all-weather, which means it's salt and rust resistant. The dust shields receive the same epoxy paint. PowerStop Z23 Evolution Sport Performance One-Click Brake Kit was designed for daily driven performance vehicles. Now their test data proves the more heat that this brake kit is subjected to, the better they perform, way over their competition. The pads are a carbon fiber ceramic formula that are resistant to heat and fading. Now over a 15 repeated stop cycle, they have less than a 10% variance in braking performance. The competitors' pads only lasted 3 stops for the same results. The rotors are cross-drilled and slotted. Now the drilled holes provide up to 180-degree cooler rotors, and the slots help to clean the braking surface. Crown Performance stainless steel brake lines make the connection from the caliper to the hardline. We're not stopping here, there's more to come. Hey, welcome back. Now that we have our transmission crossmember fabbed up in the car, which we'll show you in a minute, we're going to go ahead and get the torque converter installed for good. Now we had this one built by Circle D specifically for our vehicle. Now they build some of the best converters in the country, hands down, and here's why. All of their billet parts are forged in the USA specifically for them and machined on their in-house CNC machines. Now this gives them the upper hand in quality control. The clutch pack is proprietary to Circle D and is designed for lockup under extreme power levels. This deep groove ball bearing is designed for axial and radial loads and is unique to Circle D converters. They offer different diameters to suit any power level and weight. Give them a call to get a converter that works for you.
With the trans back in place, here comes the fabricated crossmember Mike and I built. The 4-inch round pass-throughs are the reason for making it. 3-inch exhaust wasn't going to happen otherwise. Supplying 816 horsepower isn't happening with the factory fuel pump or lines. So the tank is being removed, but not tossed.
Straight down.
We have a cool setup that will let us retain the tank and not worry about inadequate fuel supply. The stock pump is a push style that is mounted in the tank. Not sure of its rating, and we really don't care.
Fuel systems have evolved a ton in the last few years. Now, a big reason is due to late model engines being swapped into earlier model vehicles, and our Caprice is the perfect example. Now, this fuel system is the perfect setup for this build. It's one of Aeromotive's dual Phantom stealth fuel systems. Now, it uses twin 340 liter per hour pumps that will support 1,400 horsepower in boosted applications. Now, this thing comes with all the hardware and installation pieces you need to get it in the tank. So let's get started. We got lucky with the opening of this tank where the stock sender was. It's big enough, no cutting will be needed. Now the depth of the tank needs to be between 6 and 11 inches for the pump setup to work. We have 8 3/8. With the holes for the pump assembly drilled, the installation ring can drop in place. Now this foam baffle assembly that I cut to length has to go in that little hole.
The ring is a guide for drilling and protects the foam from tears during installation. Good job.
Now the fuel pump retainer ring can go in the tank. Because the plastic is thicker than a steel tank, the studs are put in after it's inside. Now the gasket goes over the studs, and the pump assembly is dropped in and aligned. Finally, the nylon sealing washers, flat washers, and the nuts can be tightened down. It's a simple installation and a great solution to supplying high horsepower engines with the fuel they need. We cut an access panel in the trunk to run our lines and wiring to the pumps. Now, using all the factory equipment, the tank is reinstalled. Now we can mount a bypass style fuel pressure regulator to the firewall. This is Holley's HP billet piece with a pressure range from 40 to 70 psi. It also has a port for boost reference, which increases the pressure as boost builds. A -6 line goes from the outlet to the fuel rail. A -8 line is attached to the inlet, which will go all the way back to the pump. Another -8 will go on the bottom, which is the return. The lines are ran along the frame rail, making sure they are tucked tight and away from heat sources. Even though the pumps are fitted with socks, a 10-micron filter should be installed for extra insurance and easy servicing. Out back, these two lines are the outlets from the pumps. A Y block will tie them together. The -8 supply line attaches to it, and the return line attaches to the return fitting on the pump assembly hat. This -6 is the vent we will run under the car, making sure it is higher than the tank. We'll cover the hole after we wire the pumps. We'll be right back.
We're back, and now it's time for the steering. Steerco's AGR Performance Division builds the steering boxes that you see on NASCAR's race cars. The reason they're the choice, if these boxes don't bind when they go into a corner, have a firm and consistent feel, and have no play in them. This billet race box has a 12.7-to-1 ratio and a firm 235 thousandths torsion bar in the spool valve for a heavy road feel, which is wanted during performance driving. It's zinc plated, and on the inside is a full bearing pack with a double wide input bearing. 440C stainless balls are on the worm gear. They even add a second needle bearing to the shaft to contain the sector with those and a bushing. This box is stronger than a rack and pinion and works on the street or track.
We're replacing all the steering links with new ones to go with our killer box. Now, a little tip is to lay your old stuff out and get the lengths as close as possible. This will save the alignment shop time. The links are attached to all the factory locations. Make sure to use the castle nuts and cotter pins. Do not substitute. That will get someone hurt or in a ditch. With the cotter pins in,
Here we go.
the steering cycle's full left and full right with 1.5 turns at the wheel. This thing is road course ready. The heat exchanger is the same one we ran on the dyno from Weapon X Motorsports. Now, I welded brackets on the tanks to mount it to the core support. This exchanger kept the coolant temps for the supercharger well below 90 degrees during all the dyno time. Summit Racing carries thousands of radiators, direct fitment and universal. This one fits in the universal category and is designed for LS engines swapped into older vehicles. It's rated to cool up to 1,000 horsepower with the dual fan setup.
It ain't gonna fall out.
Oh, that thing's in there nice.
Next, the coolant reservoir for the intercooler goes in, which was also used on the dyno. It fits neatly in the new space where the evap canister and windshield washer fluid tank assembly was. We'll relocate those later. At this point, we have a lot of plumbing to do, plus all the electrical hookups. After the break, we're gonna see just how far we can get on this car today. But first, here's something new from ARP.
It's never been easier to make wild amounts of horsepower and torque. In today's tech tip, we'll show you how using the right fasteners will keep your parts from failing. GM's LS engine family is a modern marvel. It puts supercar power in the hands of the average person for not a lot of money. Even the 4.8 and 5.3 liter truck versions make as much power as some of the top muscle cars of the 60s. ARP has an entire line of flex plate, torque converter, and bell housing bolts for the powerful 4.8 and 5.3 liter engines people are building for their hot rods. ARP's bolts feature superior metallurgy over factory hardware, plus their rolled threads are done after heat treating. These fasteners have increased tensile strength and should always be properly torqued with ARP lube or a thread locker. When you've increased the horsepower and torque from stock, you'll appreciate the added performance and insurance you'll get from these ARP fasteners. We made quite a bit of progress today. Now to finish off the stout rear end, we have to put in some heavy-duty wheel studs.
These are from ARP and made of cadmium-plated 8740 chromoly, which is heat-treated with a tensile strength of 190,000 psi. They can easily handle tremendous acceleration loads and lateral forces. Our heavy-duty axles are now slid in for good, so we can move on to some wiring. Back in the trunk, the power and ground wires are hooked to the in-tank fuel pump and get run all the way up front under the hood, where they're connected to the fuel pump relay with crimps and solder. Next, the ECU from the dyno session is securely mounted and the main wiring harness is plugged in. Now the coolant hoses can be ran. First, from the intercooler at the back of the intake to the reservoir. Then down to the pump, and from it to the heat exchanger. Finally, the other side of the exchanger, which goes to the inlet of the intercooler. Finishing it all off are the radiator hose connections.
We used a set of F-body Camaro long tube headers from Hooker's Super Comp line. The exhaust pipe is one of Magnaflow's custom builder kits. It's 3 inches in diameter and ties into a pair of their 3.5 inch straight through mufflers, soon to be equipped with turn downs. Now we made the intake tube to fit the engine compartment. It's 4-inch aluminum pipe. A conical filter will keep the elements out of the engine. Royal Purple Max Easy Power Steering Fluid will fill the reservoir, and their 5W30 High Performance Street Oil will put our minds at ease knowing we have some of the best lubrication available. To power the car, an Optima Red Top AGM battery. It's the ultimate starting battery and designed to give a power burst of ignition power for reliable startups every time.
Our plans for this geriatric missile include some heavy-duty corner carving at the road course, so we stepped up the tire and wheel package accordingly. Now, knowing we were in need of a wheel that would take hardcore abuse, we opted for these great-looking ones from Summit Racing. Now, they actually fit a truck, but the 5-on-5 bolt circle and the offset fit within our wheel wells perfectly. The rubber is equally as aggressive with these Netto NT05s. They are a DOT legal 200 wear rated tire built for serious street and track driving. The size is 275 40/18s all the way around.
For instrumentation, we wanted a high-tech solution. Now, hands down, RacePak is at the forefront of technology. This is their IQ3 Street digital dash that is a complete replacement for your factory dash cluster. Now, this thing is packed full of features, like internal warning lights to let you know if your engine is too hot or if your oil pressure is too low. Plus, it even has built-in progressive shift lights. I already wired this connector to the car, which goes to the back of the RacePak unit. Now, the connections that are wired to the car are a ground, switch 12 volt, left, right turn signal, high beam, and tail lights. That way, when they're turned on, this goes into night mode. Simply plug them in for the connection. On top of the car is a GPS module we mounted to make the speedometer work. We ordered this system with the CAN-based OBD2 functions. It basically reads all the engine's vitals from the ECU to the diagnostic port, so you don't have to worry about mounting additional sensors or wiring. Let's see it in action. That's what I'm talking about. Wiring, plumbing, anything leaking?
Looks good.
Batteries charging? Awesome. While not roadworthy yet, it gives new hope for the golden years.
Duplicolor's custom wrap removable coating is a customizer's dream come true, and it's specifically formulated to provide a smooth and professional looking finish on virtually any part of your car because it's safe to apply to painted or plated surfaces without causing any harm. Their new matte metallic series will add a bit of flash to your project, and applying 4 to 6 coats as per the instructions will result in a durable finish that looks great. And when you want to try another color, their Easy Peel technology makes it simple to do so by coming off in one sheet and leaving no residue behind.
Gunk's all-purpose cleaner and degreaser is industrial strength, but it's also non-toxic and biodegradable. Now, this stuff is specifically designed to remove heavy dirt and grease on any surface, but won't harm plastics or etch aluminum. You can use it full strength for degreasing nasty parts like this diff cover, then rinse with water, or dilute it down for light-duty surface cleaning. The performance-based formula has an improved scent and is nearly neutral pH, so it's safer on your eyes and skin. Now, it's available in spray bottles or gallon jugs like this, and you can find it at your local automotive retailer.
We as engine builders use a lot of mathematics in the planning, machining, and assembling of our bullets. The tolerances, clearances, and sizes are all important when you're designing an engine package to do a specific job. What I'm going to show you today are some basic formulas that every engine builder should know so you can compute accurate values in any engine no matter the application. The first and most obvious, cubic inch displacement. Now, all we're doing is finding the volume of a cylinder and timesing it by the number of cylinders that you have. And that is the bore size times the bore size times the amount of stroke times 0.7854, which is a derivative of pi times the number of cylinders. So, for example, if we had an engine with a 4600 bore and a 4750 stroke, plugging it in would yield 631.52 cubic inches, which is a popular big block Chevy race engine. Next up is converting cubic inches to cc's. Now, it's the same formula as finding the volume of a cylinder, it just has a multiplier at the end. Our derivative of pi, 0.7854, times our bore, times our bore, times our stroke, times 16.39, which is our conversion. Using the same engine we used previously, that would equal 1293.836 cc's, and that's an important factor, especially when finding compression ratio. Moving on, we'll figure mean or average piston speed. Now that's the stroke times RPM divided by 6. Using our engine at 4750 stroke and 6000 RPM, it'll equal 4750 feet per minute. Now, why is that important? Well, it dictates your internal components and your induction system. The higher the RPM, the better the parts. And just FYI, the average race engine has a piston speed of over 4,000 feet per minute. Last but certainly not least is compression ratio, and it is simply the cylinder volume at TDC versus BDC. And how it's figured are taking and adding the measured volumes of the cylinder, combustion chamber, head gasket, and so forth, and then subtracting the cylinder volume only. So in the case of our 4600 bore by 4750 stroke big block, we come up with 1381.2 divided by 87.36, which that equals a stout 15.81 to 1 compression ratio. I know it looks a bit complicated, but if you know your measured values, it's really straightforward. Plus, you can always log on to Summit Racing's website, click on Expert Advice and News, and plug your numbers into the compression calculator and get your compression ratio. And now you have some good info in your engine builder's toolbox so you can build the best engine that you can. And always remember, there should be no guesswork in engine building.
That's enough for today. Next time you see it, it's going to be in full tilt action, and we'll show you what that big old boat will be able to do.